So let's just dive right into this, because you really have two totally different outcomes here, right? The buzz says he's a generational talent, a can't-miss prospect. But history is filled with #1 picks who were legends, and a whole lot of what-ifs. So we're going to break down both paths his career could take, using the real data and scouting reports to understand that superstar ceiling and the potential bust scenario.
First things first, to really get this whole debate, you gotta understand why the expectations for this 18-year-old from Maine are just so massive. His whole profile is basically built on 3 pillars: the physical tools, an absolutely dominant resume, and a statistical footprint that puts him in some seriously legendary company. I mean, just look at these numbers. They are pretty much the perfect blueprint for a modern NBA star. You've got a guy who's almost 6'8" with a 7-foot wingspan. That's just disruptive length. But then you add a 40-inch vertical and a solid 221-pound frame, and suddenly you've got the ideal physical prototype for a league where positions barely matter. He's big enough to guard forwards, but athletic enough to switch onto guards.
And his resume? Man, it is just a story of unparalleled dominance at every single level. He wins a state title at his local high school as a freshman, then goes to the powerhouse Montverde Academy and wins a national championship. At the super elite Nike Peach Jam, he's putting up historic triple-doubles. He wins a gold medal with Team USA, and then, as the youngest player in college hoops, he sweeps the National Player of the Year awards at Duke. The guy has won everywhere he's ever been. And these numbers, these show his real on-court impact. If you look past the basic points and rebounds, his advanced metrics at Duke put him in the same stratosphere as guys like Anthony Davis and Zion Williamson. He was #1 in the entire country in defensive win shares and box plus minus, which measures a player's total contribution. That isn't just good for a freshman, it's historically dominant. Okay, so with that incredible foundation, let's build the affirmative case. What does the path to true, undeniable superstardom actually look like? Well, it's built on a mix of generational defense, super efficient offense, and a competitive drive that's just relentless. The absolute bedrock of his potential. The one thing pretty much every scout agrees on is his defense. And they don't just say it's good, they say it's generational. He's not just a shot blocker, he's more like a defensive free safety, rotating from the weak side to just erase shots at the rim. His ability to guard almost anyone on the floor makes him a strategic cheat code against modern NBA offenses. Now on offense, he isn't necessarily the guy who's going to give you a ton of flashy one-on-one moves. Instead, he's built to make his teammates better. He's an absolute monster in transition, a really smart passer, averaged over 4 assists a game at Duke, and he's got a reliable three-point shot. All these skills make him what people call the ultimate superstar force multiplier, the kind of player who turns a good team into a great one. But you know his single best attribute might not be a skill you can see on the court at all? It's his mindset. He says this quote all the time, and it tells you everything about his relentless drive to get better. He actively seeks out bigger and bigger challenges, and so far, he's conquered every single one. That mentality, that's the engine that powers the whole superstar argument. Okay, but let's be real. No prospect is perfect. So now we've got to flip the coin and look at the other side. Let's build the case for caution. The arguments against Flagg aren't about some huge glaring flaw, but more about subtle limitations that could put a cap on his ceiling, keeping him just below that superstar level. So, the biggest concern revolves around what scouts are calling the creation conundrum. See, to be a true #1 option in the NBA, you have to be able to create a good shot for yourself late in the clock. And right now, his ball handling is seen as his weakest skill. He just doesn't have those elite dance moves to consistently break down a set NBA defense by himself. And hey, this isn't just a theory. We saw this play out in his professional debut. His first Summer League game, he really struggled. Shot just 5 for 21. Pro-level defenders kind of exposed some of those offensive limitations, and he even said himself it was a horrible performance. But this is where the whole debate really comes into focus, because in the very next game, he explodes for 31 points. So what was the key? The coaches adjusted. They used it more in off-ball actions instead of asking him to create everything himself. This is a perfect little snapshot of the whole argument. He struggles as the primary creator, but he's dominant when you put him in the right spot to succeed. And you know, history gives us plenty of reasons to be cautious. For every #1 pick, like LeBron James, there's a Greg Oden, whose career was just shattered by injuries, or an Anthony Bennett, who just never found that one elite skill to hang his hat on. That path from #1 pick to true superstar, it is incredibly narrow and it is full of risks. So, all of this brings us to the central debate. What kind of player is he actually going to become? It's not really a simple good or bad question. It's more of a spectrum of possibilities, and it's often framed by two very different player archetypes.
The consensus is that his career will probably fall somewhere on this spectrum. His floor, his absolute worst-case scenario, is an elite player like Andrei Kirilenko, a defensive monster, a smart offensive player, a multi-time All-Star. I mean, an incredible career. His ceiling, though, is a primary scorer like Jason Tatum, a guy who can be the #1 option on a championship team.
And that gets us to the central paradox of Cooper Flagg. Being good at everything makes him an incredibly valuable player with a super high floor. But to get to that Tatum-level ceiling, he's going to have to sharpen one of those good offensive skills, probably his shot creation, and turn it into a truly unstoppable weapon. That is the leap he has to make.
So what should we be watching for now that he's with the Dallas Mavericks? His development isn't going to happen overnight, but there is a pretty clear roadmap that's going to tell us which path he's actually on.
Think of it like a developmental roadmap. In his first couple of years, you're just looking for efficiency. Can he play well in a smaller role? Then, by years 3 and 4, we need to see signs of him becoming a secondary creator. And then, by year 5 and beyond, that's when we'll know. That's when he has to make the leap to being a reliable primary offensive option if he wants to hit that ceiling.
So the debate is set. A complete and total bust seems incredibly unlikely. His defense, his motor, his basketball IQ, they give him one of the highest floors we've seen in years. But his journey to fulfilling that generational label, it depends entirely on whether he can develop that elite go-to offensive game. The foundation is rock solid, for sure, but the question remains, can he build a skyscraper on top of it?